are going to participate in a game once again. And because we were having this walk down a memory lane, I think it's the way you say that sentence, we are going to play an activity related to songs. Some of them are kind of, I mean, I'm not kind of old, but they have been released many years ago. So we have a missing word in the middle, and we are going to complete this word by finding the missing words from those song titles that are present there. So the first one is a song by Eminem and Rihanna, and it's called "Love the Way You."
Lie.
Do you know? Do you lie? Great. So the first missing letter it's L. So yeah, "Love the Way You Lie." The second one, it's by Adele, "Rolling the Deep."
In.
Great. Second one it's in. Then we have a song by Dua Lipa that was very popular, I think 1 or 2 years ago. That the first word's missing, but the second one is rules.
New.
New? Did you say new?
Yes, new rules.
New rules. That's correct. Then we have somewhere we only. No, I mean somewhere only we. I was reading it backwards. Somewhere only we blank.
Could it be no?
Yes. Words now. Somewhere only we know. And then we have a song by Mariah Carey, which is a song I religiously listen to every single December 1st. And it's called All I Want for Christmas, You. What is the missing word?
Is.
Exactly. Is you. Then we have a song by Ariana Grande, or Ariana Grande, and it's called Thank You.
Next.
Next. Great. Thank you. Next. And the last but not least is a song by Psy that was very popular. I will say like in 2014. And the first one is missing, but the second one is Style. Do you know which song this one is about?
Ghana style.
Yeah, I was going to say it has a very particular dance. So many people I remember were dancing to the song when it came out. Gangnam Style. So now that we have completed the names of the songs, we have our missing word, which was linking. And that is the topic of the second hour of the lesson. So, linking. Sebastian, can you help me with the first paragraph? What is linking?
Yes. Linking is the connection of the final sound, vowel or consonant, of one word or syllable to the initial sound of the next word or syllable.
Thank you very much. So it's about the connection of the first sound to the initial sound to it's the connection between the initial sound of a word and the last or the final sound of another word. So they are linked together. Thank you very much. Now, Cristobal, can you help me with the second paragraph, please?
Okay. If there is no pause between two words, they should be linked together so that they sound like one word. Linking means that sounds should be joined smoothly to each other. If you do not link words together, your speech sounds choppy. If you practice linking words, your speech will become much clearer.
Thank you very much. So I think it's very explanatory what linking is, because it's about linking words, linking sounds together. Like if there was no pause in between them, and just and it's like if there were only one word. With this being said, today we are going to learn about linking R and intrusive R. But before we do that, we are going to learn something about it's like a common background for these two features of connected speech. That is where you can find these features of connected speech. Amaya, are you here? Can you speak? No? It's okay. I can read. So this phenomena occurs in many non-rhotic varieties of English, such as those in most England and Wales, part of the United States, such as New York and New Jersey, and all of the Anglophone societies of the Southern Hemisphere, like in New Zealand, Canada, or Australia, with the exception of South Africa. So basically, you can find these features of connected speech when you have non-rhotic varieties of English, when people drop the final R sounds at the end of words, when there's no rhoticity. Is this clear? Do you understand this? Yes?
I think so, Miss.
Okay. So because I think it's very easy to differentiate when a British people is speaking, for instance, from someone that is from, I don't know, California, because of the way, for instance, like I already mentioned, the final R sounds are pronounced, because English people, it is very likely that they are not going to pronounce the final R sounds, whereas people from LA, for instance, are going to pronounce those final R sounds. Like, do we have a word with R there? I don't think we have. But I know you know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way they speak, it's very different, and it's mainly because of those sounds. So, with that being said, we are going to move on to linking. And linking happens when in a non-rhotic accent, we pronounce the R sound at the end of a word or syllable as long as the following sound is a vowel sound. So, for instance, we have the example of, can somebody call for an ambulance? In a rhotic accent, we will say for an ambulance, like I just pronounced. But in a non-rhotic accent, for instance, in an Aussie accent from Australia, or in an English accent from the United Kingdom, people usually don't say for, they say for. They don't pronounce the final R sound. So in the case of, can somebody call for an ambulance, someone that pronounces with a non-rhotic accent will usually can somebody call for an ambulance? For. But because we are using the linking R, we are going to pronounce these final R sound that we usually will drop. So somebody that is using a linking R that it's from that has a non-rhotic accent will say, "Can somebody call for an ambulance?" For can somebody call for an ambulance? The same happens in the case, for instance, of for apples. Someone that doesn't pronounce a final R sound, the number 4 will be pronounced just like in the case of 4, like 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So instead of saying 4 apples, we will say 4 apples. We will pronounce the final R sound, even though in isolation we wouldn't pronounce that final R sound. Is it clear? Do you understand what I mean? Yes, no. Sebastian, do you understand this?
Yes.
Yes. We are going to see this with another example. For instance, in the case of later, in a non-rhotic accent, we will say later, later. We wouldn't pronounce the final R sound like later. We will say later. But if we have, for instance, like this, like in this case, in which we have a following vowel sound after the R, when we have the word later on, we are going to pronounce that final sound. We are not going to say later on. We are going to say later on. I mean later on. Later on. We are going to pronounce that final sound. And for instance, in the case of better day, we are not going to pronounce the R sound in the middle because day starts with a consonant sound. So we are not going to include the linking R. We're just going to say better day, better day. But like I already mentioned, if the word, if the following sound is a vowel, like in the case of better answer, answer starts with an A. So the sound is a long A. It's an A. So we are going to pronounce the linking R in that case. We are going to say better answer. Better answer. Linking is something that is optional. It is not mandatory, but people usually use this feature of connected speech. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you, but the last thing you said, I didn't understand it well. Like the vowel
So,
sound?
yeah.
Because in ambulance we have a vowel sound, but you linking.
Yeah, look. Linking R happens when we have a final R sound that it's followed by like, yeah. I'm going to explain this with the last example so you can understand. But linking R happens when we have an R sound at the end of a word. For instance, here we have an R sound, right? But because this happens on non-rhotic accents, this final R sound is usually not pronounced. So it's like it wasn't there because people don't usually pronounce it in isolation. But only if the following sound, it starts with a vowel sound, we are going to pronounce that sound that it's usually dropped, that it's usually not pronounced in the normal, I mean in isolation. So for instance, when we have the word better, in a non-rhotic accent we say better. We don't pronounce the final R sound. We don't say better, we say better. But because the following sound it's a vowel, we are going to pronounce the R sound at the end. So we are going to say better answer. Better answer. Not like in the case of the previous example in which you have a consonant sound after the word better, in which you will only say better day, because there's no vowel sound, so there's no linking R here in the middle. But in the case, for instance, of better answer, we do have a link in a link in a because the following sound is a vowel sound. So we are going to pronounce the sound in order to link these two words. Is it a little bit more clear now? Or do I need to keep do you understand?
It's clear, but I got confused when you, in the case of can somebody call for an ambulance, you didn't pronounce the R, I guess. So
I pronounced that because I was explaining it by itself, that we don't
Ah.
usually use we don't usually pronounce the R sound in the case of non-rhotic. We say, when we have the word for, we say for in a non-rhotic accent, only for. But in this case, because of the following sound is a vowel sound, we say fora. We do pronounce the final R sound. So, can somebody call for an ambulance? For an ambulance. Now we're going to see more examples, by the way, so don't worry. I don't know if you are going to be able to listen to this man. If not, please let me know. So,
No.
no? Okay. So give me a second. It is. Oi. Can you listen to him now?
My ear is sore.
Yes.
Yes, great.
Yes.
Let's listen to him once again.
My ear is sore.
As you can be able to notice, if I'm not mistaken, he is from Australia. In Australia, they don't pronounce final R sounds. So when we are talking about this body part, they say ear, my ear. For instance, like I have a what do you call this? Earring on my ear. They wouldn't pronounce the body part as ear in isolation or as a final or when there is nothing after the word ear. But in this case, because the following sound is a short I, he is going to pronounce the final R sound. So he's going to say, my ear is sore. My eerie. Like let's listen to him once again.
My ear is sore.
My ear is sore. So can you tell the difference? I cannot see that. Can you can you understand this or not?
Yes.
My ear is sore.
Now we are going to listen to some people pronouncing the name of if I'm not mistaken, it's a Russian book, well-known Russian book. And the name of the book is War and Peace. The thing is, like I already mentioned, that people that has non-Russian accents, we will not usually say war, like for the name of when people fight in these conflicts. They will say war. So they wouldn't say war normally in isolation, but war. Or did you go to war? But as you can be able to now listen to this in the example, they're going to say war. instead of just saying war. So let's listen to them.
Peace. War and peace.
War and peace.
War and peace. War and peace.
See, they usually, the words are war, peace, but because there is between them there's an end, and the end begins with a vowel sound, they are going to pronounce these as war and peace. Let's listen to them.
Peace. War and peace.
War and peace.
War and peace. War and peace.
And now we are going to listen to other people pronouncing more examples. And in this video, you have, I think, 1 or 2 seconds after they have pronounced the sentences in order for you to pronounce them at home. So I will recommend you to do so. So now we're going to listen to them.
You know, I really like my mother-in-law.
Have you been to the Tower of London?
You've got something in your eye.
Never again.
You know, I really like my mother-in-law.
So this, I think all these people is British. They will usually say mother, but because of the linking R, they're not going to say mother-in-law. They're going to say mother-in. That's just because of the linking R. So, you know, I really like my mother-in-law. Not mother-in, but mother-in. And the next one. Sorry.
You know, I really like my mother-in-law.
Have you been to the Tower of London?
The same happens here. The word is usually pronounced as tower, but because of the schwa, the vowel sound, we say tower of. Have you been to the Tower of London? Next.
You've got something in your eye.
Here is the same thing. The word is usually pronounced as yo, and because of the I, the diphthong, the vowel sound, we say yora. You got something in your eye. Yora. Your eye.
Never again.
And last but not least, in a non-rhotic accent, we will say never. But because of the vowel sound, we say never again. So we are going to pronounce the final R sound. I insist, keep in mind that this happens in non-rhotic varieties of English, in varieties of English when there is not R coloring, when we don't usually pronounce the final R sounds. So is the linking R clear or not? Is it clear for you? Clear?
Yes.
Great. Because now we are going to move on to the intrusive R. And the intrusive R, it's something that happens between two words when the first word ends in a vowel sound and the second word begins with a vowel sound. So in this case, instead of the previous one in which the word ended in an R sound but it wasn't pronounced, here we don't have the word that ends in its written form in an R sound. Here the R sound is not in the spelling, but we are going to pronounce these words with an R sound between them because it is going to help us to link these two sentences. For instance, in the case of lo and order. How we usually will pronounce the word law, it's just like law with an O, a long O, right? But because the following sound, it's also a vowel sound, here we are going to include an R sound in the middle. So we are going to say Laura Nota, Laura Nota, Laura, Laura Nota, because we are going to include this R sound to link these two words together, even though there is not an A in the spelling. So that's why here I included a picture of some little ghosts, because it's a ghosting R. It's not an R that is present in the spelling, but it's an R we are going to include. So their example says law and order. Law and order is important. And now with the intrusive R, we are going to say law and order is important. Can you notice the difference between law and order and law and order? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Two things before we move on to the other examples is that this usually happens when the first word ends with a schwa, but here, for instance, in the case of law, it ends with a long O. So that's something for you to keep in mind, that usually this happens when we have a schwa sound. And just something that I have already mentioned, remember that there is not an R on the spelling, but it is going to be pronounced, the words are going to be pronounced as if there was an R in the spelling. So to continue, we are going to hear some people speaking again. And this is the same example I already mentioned. I already read. So
Order is important.
Yes, I think law and order is important.
Law and order is very important.
We all think that law and order is important.
I think law and order is very important.
keep in mind that these people in isolation, they will say law, only law, and, but because of the intrusive R, they are going to say law and order. Especially, I think the man that says law and order are very important. In his the way he pronounced it, I think it's very clear.
Order is important.
Yes, I think law and order is important.
Law and order is very important.
We all think that law and order is important.
I think law and order is very important.
Yeah, law and order. Now we have some other examples. Like, for instance, on the case of sofa, the word sofa is just ends in a vowel sound, right? In this case, it is a schwa, sofa. But then we have a schwa. We also have a schwa because of the word end. So in this case, we are going to link these two words together, including this intrusive R, and we are going to say sofa and chess. Sofa and chess. Then we have the second example, in which is formula, and then we have A. And this is the racing, the car racing, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. And the way we will pronounce this is Formula A. Formula A. Ray. And finally, we have then America, and Europe. And including the linking, the intrusive R, I'm sorry, it will be American Europe. American Europe. American Europe. American Europe. Europe. The same happens here. Formula A. So, Amaya, are you here?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Can you help me with the pronunciation of these examples, please? So, foreign chess, Formula A, American Europe.
Certain chairs, Formula A, American Europe.
Thank you very much. Cristóbal.
Sovereign chairs, Formula A, American and Europe.
American Europe.
American Europe.
Yeah, because we are not pronouncing the D and end. It's American Europe. And Sebastián.
Sofa and chairs, Formula A, America and Europe.
American Europe.
America and Europe.
American Europe. Remember that that's something that we need to remember. We usually pronounce this when we are speaking also, like, I mean, not fast, but when we are linking our speech. So even though we know that America, it's America, here we are including this R sound because of the intrusive R. So American Europe. American Europe. So thank you, Sebastián. Please tell me if you can listen to the man now, to the video, I mean. So.
This picture, I draw it.
Could you be able to listen to him?
Yes.
Yes, great. So we are going to listen to him again.
This picture, I draw it.
Now the verb draw, it doesn't have an R, right? But because of the intrusive R, we are going to pronounce it as if there was an R. So he says, this picture, I draw it. This picture, I draw it. He doesn't say, this picture, I draw it. Draw it. He says, draw it. One second.
This picture, I draw it.
I draw it. So is this clear? The concepts of linking R and intrusive R, are they clear?
Yes. Miss, the intrusive R, it always happened? When we have the the requirements?
I will say so. I mean, when native speakers of English speak, they do include the features of connected speech all the time. So I will say yes, it does. I think there are some exceptions in which, for instance, if someone is giving a conference and they are emphasizing every word, they are probably not going to include a linking R. But for instance, like the people that was interviewed in the streets, they were all including the intrusive R and the linking R because it's a way they speak, they naturally speak.
Okay.
So now we are going to practice, and for this I need you to take notes because I usually give you the sentences, but in this case I am not. You have to listen to these five recordings, these 5 sentences. You have to write them down and identify if they are using linking R or intrusive R. So we are going to listen to each recording 3 times, and then I am going to ask you which were the sentences. Cristóbal, is it clear what you have to do?
Yes.
Great. So we are going to start now. So please take notes. This is the first sentence.
My sister is older than me, but my brother is younger.
Could you be able to listen to that, right?
Yes.
Yes, great. So now we're going to listen to it for the second time.
My sister is older than me, but my brother is younger.
And now one last time.
My sister is older than me, but my brother is younger.
Now the second time. I mean the second sentence.
We saw another film last weekend.
Once again.
We saw another film last weekend.
One last time.
We saw another film last weekend.
Now sentence number 3.
The store at the end of the street is closed.
One last, the second time.
The store at the end of the street is closed.
One last time.
The store at the end of the street is closed.
Sentence number 4.
I've never asked for it to happen.
Second time.
I've never asked for it to happen.
Third time.
I've never asked for it to happen.
And now sentence number 5.
Oliver asked for a smaller onion.
Second time.
Oliver asked for a smaller onion.
And one last time.
Oliver asked for a smaller onion.
Do you need to listen to one of the recordings once again?
I got problems with number 2 and 5. I cannot recognize what they say.
They
In some
say
part of it.
number 2 and 5?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
This is number 2.
We saw another film last weekend.
So it says, we saw another film last weekend.
Film, that's the word, film.
Yes. And this is number 5.
Oliver asked for a smaller onion.
The name is Oliver, by the way.
That's
Oliver. Yeah, I was thinking that's a tricky name, Oliver, because
for a small. What in the last word is.
Oliver asked for a smaller onion.
Onion. An onion. It's an onion. It's one of those that make you cry if you cut them. So we are going to check your answer.
My sister is older than me, but my brother is younger.
Oh, I just gave you the answer to the first one. Which is the first sentence? Amaya, let's start with you.
The first sentence is, my sister is older than me, but my brother is younger.
That's correct. Is it a linking R or intrusive R?
It's a linking R.
And do you know where it's happening, this linking R?
I can recognize this. My sister is, and my brother is. My sister is older than me. My brother is younger.
Exactly. My sister is older than me, but my brother is younger. That's correct. Thank you very much. Now, Cristobal. Oh, sorry, sentence number 2. I don't know what is wrong with me.
We saw another film last weekend.
That's correct. And the in the linker or intrusive? Intrusive.
Saw another.
That's correct. Here we are an R. Sebastian, number 3.
Sorry, teacher, but I can't remember the phrase. I didn't know that I had to read in my book.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I told you that I was not giving you the sentences. But I am going to give you the sentence, but you have to identify what type of linking is, if it's a linking R or an intrusive R. So the sentence is that one. Can you pronounce the sentence, please?
The store at the end of the street is closed.
Yeah.
Is
it a linking or
linking? Linking.
Yeah. Ah, linking?
Yes.
Why?
In the store at.
Remember that this happens when we have a non-rhotic accent. So the way we will pronounce the word store, it's not with the sound at the end. It's store. Store at the end. We do hear an R sound, but is it because of the linking or is it because of the intrusive R? What do you reckon, the rest?
It's of the linking, because it's the same that happened in the first example. Sister is sister. They would say sister, but as there's a vowel.
In the case of linking, we do have a final R sound in the spelling, but we don't pronounce it. But in the case of store, the store, how often do you go to the store? Or to that store? We don't usually pronounce the R at the end. What?
I said they don't usually pronounce.
Yeah, they don't usually pronounce the final R sound. So it's a linking or it's an intrusive R? Because the person says the store at the end. We are clear about that. But is it because of the linking or is it because of the intrusive R?
Well, what you're saying is intrusive, but I thought it's linking too.
Sorry. I will say it's intrusive because in the spelling we don't have a final R. Linking happens when we have a final R in the spelling that we usually don't pronounce because we don't pronounce final R sounds in non-rhotic accents. But because we are linking the sounds, we do pronounce them, but if not, we are not. And in this case, the final sound of store is a long O. And then we have at. So it's a vowel sound. And the R sound, it's linking those two ones. No? Yes or no? Do you understand?
I understand it, but I still got confused. I mean, I understand your point, but I thought it's linking anyways because we have an error in the
spelling. But the thing is, not in a final. It's not in final position. That's something you need to remember. The linking happens when we have an R in the final position in the written form, and we usually don't pronounce the R. But here we have an it ends with a vowel. In this case, it's store, the store. So it is intrusive. Now, because of the time, I think we don't have many minutes left. So Amaya, can you tell me the following one, number 4?
Number 4. All right. And I can write it down because I don't understand the speaker.
Oh, it's okay. The sentence was this one. Is it intrusive or is it linking? Can you read the sentence for me, please?
I never asked it for it to happen.
That's correct. Is it linking R or intrusive R?
Please linking.
That's correct. Why is it linking?
Never asked it. Never asked it. I connected.
That's right. We say never in a non-rhotic accent. Never. So they say never asked. That's correct. Cristobal, the last one, please.
Oliver asked for a small onion.
Is it linking or is it intrusive R?
Linking.
And where does the linking happen?
Oliver asked and for and a smaller onion.
That's right. We have 3 linking R's here. Oliver asked for a smaller onion. Now we are going to have a short recap of everything. So today we worked with assimilation, that is when a sound becomes similar to its neighboring sounds, and we saw progressive assimilation, regressive, and coalescent. Regressive, it's when the following sound affects the first one. Progressive is when the first sound affects the second one, and coalescent is when both sounds influence each other and they find a middle position, a middle point for between the 2 phonemes. And last, the second hour we saw linking. That is when we connect the connection the connection of final sounds, a vowel or a consonant, to the initial sound of the following word or syllable. And then we saw linking R. That is when in a non-rhotic accent we pronounce the final R sound that we usually drop as long as the following sound is a vowel sound. And then we have the intrusive R, which is when we pronounce an R sound between 2 vowel sounds to link them even though there's not an R in the spelling, because the final sounds are vowel sounds. Now, do you have any questions regarding this? No, not for now. Great, because you have homework. And the homework is that you are going to go to YouTube and you are going to find example videos with examples where assimilation and or linking is present. It can be linking R or intrusive R. This will help you because if you do this, you are going to be able to listen to people speaking and you are going to notice if they're using these features of connected speech or not. In the case of linking, because we saw linking R and intrusive R, I recommend you to listen to people that has a non-rhotic accent. And as we already mentioned, it can be people from in the States, from New York or New Jersey, from New Zealand, Australia, or England, Wales, etc. Do you understand what you have to do? Is it clear? This is going to help you to understand this better because you're going to be able to identify the features by yourself. Is it clear what you have to do?
Yes, miss.
Yes. So I think that's the end of today's lesson. If there's no further questions, we may call it a lesson for today.
All
right. Amaya, do you have a question or are you saying goodbye?
I'm saying goodbye. I say
goodbye. Yeah, that's it. Professor Bruno, do you want to say something before we leave?
Thank you for the class. Thank you for the session, Ms. Javiera. I just want to emphasize that these phonological processes are very natural and very common. Many of us use them without even knowing or noticing that we're actually using linking or that sounds are being assimilated. It just takes place, and it's something that it comes natural whenever someone is using language fluently. And some of them are most common. For example, linking R, linking yeah, linking W. They just occur naturally. But I would say that, for example, sorry, there's a bird outside. Queltehue, that's the name in Spanish. But intrusive R, for instance, it takes place within some specific regional varieties of English. Not every single speaker is going to use an intrusive R, but whenever it happens, it's good to know, right? It's good to be familiar with this concept. So whenever you hear someone saying American or Law and Order, you don't stop like thinking, wow, is that a different word? It's like law, but it sounds like lore. So it's like Lord, and you know. So it's better to know, to be familiar with the concepts, even though you're not using them yourselves. But whenever you're listening to someone who is using the features, you're already familiar with it. So it's not affecting your listening comprehension of the text. That's important to know. And with this, you can describe how someone speaks. For example, in Spanish, some people would say Chile, some people would say Chile, and we can understand them anyway, but we are aware that the first sound in each of the speakers is not the same. Or when people say hablar or hablare, as in some rural areas, sure, viajar, viajare, we understand the same thing, but we are also aware that there is an intrusive element there that is not affecting communication, but that it's quite interesting and attractive to be familiar with in advance, right? So that what happens with language. Language is quite dynamic, and that's why we need to understand that we're not forced to use features of connected speech when we are using the language. It just happens naturally because, as Ms. Javiera said, the tongue, being a muscle, needs to get ready for the following sound. So sounds affect each other, influence each other, because that's the way that the tongue as a muscle is, right? Sometimes it gets a little bit lazy, and it's not going to the alveolar ridge. It gets like in between. You see, it is interesting, particularly for those of you who may continue studies. If you are studying a master later, for example, a master in linguistics, this is sort of a background that you need to have, that you need to know. It's sort of basic for you. That's all, Ms. Aida. Thank you for your class.
You're welcome. So that's all for today's lesson. Cristobal, do you want? No. So that's all for today's lesson. And have a good weekend. And I will see you all on Wednesday.
I mean,
Friday,
Goodbye.
right? Today's Friday. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank God it's Friday. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the goodness. I had totally forgotten it's Friday. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.